Welcome to Montreal, Quebec, Canada. It is the second largest city in this country, and the name was derived from Montreal. It's a hillside just north of downtown. Population over 3.7 million, and now the NASCAR Nationwide Series is getting ready for final practice at the circuit Gilles, Villeneuve. And we welcome you to the 14-turn, one of the hardest layouts that you'll ever imagine trying to drive on, Circuit Gilles Villeneuve. It is final practice for the NASCAR Nationwide Series. Stop number 23 of the 35 race tour in the 2008 NASCAR Nationwide Series schedule. And you can tell just by that one glimpse, the crowd has really turned out here on this Friday afternoon. That's us in that tower off to the right there. We're in the very top level. We're waving to you, but all those tint windows can't see much of anything. But glad that you're with us here as let's check in pit side. First up is Vince Welch.
Well, Marty, this final practice means different things for different drivers. For a road course veteran like Marcus Ambrose, it's an opportunity to fine-tune the balance, get his race car just right. Although Ambrose says he doesn't want to be too hard on the equipment, so his lap total will likely be lower than someone like his teammate, Kelly Byers. This is Byers' first time here, and Byers wants and needs every lap he can get. Kelly told me just a few moments ago, right now this car's driving me more than I'm driving it. They've changed the setup. They hope to change around that equation here in this final practice. Now let's check in with Jack Arute. Jack?
All right, Vince. Well, Carl Edwards and 4 other Sprint Cup drivers are supposed to be in competition here, and they will be. But you talk about pressure. Well, for 5 drivers that are super subs, the pressure starts right now. Why? They've got to shake these cars down, and those Sprint Cup drivers will not get any practice. In fact, they won't get here till just before Gentlemen Start Your Engines because of the festivities in the race in Pocono, Pennsylvania. They have to shake these cars down and then go qualify them. Where's the pressure? Well, where they qualify will help determine where these cars will find themselves on pit road. And by the way, it'll determine the seating at the back of the field for the Fast 5 from the Sprint Cup. Marty?
All right, thanks, Jack. As we come topside alongside Randy LaJoie and Rusty Wallace. And let's delve into some of these subjects because we just found out from NASCAR we're going to be in a bit of a track hold. They're taking a look and inspecting a portion of the racetrack here at Circuit Gilles Villeneuve. Randy, first off, guys either love road course racing or they hate it. Why?
Well, it goes together. You love it because it's different. You hate it because you don't do it enough. And it's tough to get very good if you don't do it a lot. And the guys that come in here with a positive attitude, they usually do a little better.
All right, let's talk about the fact we have 7 specialists. We also like to call them ringers, and you hired one of them for the 64 car, Max Papis.
Yeah, I did hire Max Papis to drive the 64. David Stremley normally drives it, but at the beginning of the year, we had a plan, and the plan was to get a road racing expert in that car to try to help a team get a victory quick. And there's a lot of other teams out there doing that. They see this race as an opportunity. Something totally different from what they're accustomed to running, and they want to take an advantage by putting one of those road race ringers in there, like Ron Fellows, Scott Pruett, guys like that.
And you see Scott Pruett right there. He'll be in the 40 Fastenal machine for Chip Ganassi. He's also running in the Grand Am race. There's Patrick Carpentier, and he is going to have a huge following here because he is one of 2 Quebecers, as he and Jacques Villeneuve, the son of Gilles Villeneuve, will be in this field. And there you can see the flag with his name on it, the provincial flag of Quebec. And as we take a look at the motorsports menu, and you'll see this huge crowd that has turned out here on a Friday afternoon. We'll show you everything that's coming up this weekend. It's going to continue at 3:30 Eastern Time with Sprint Cup Series qualifying. Then NASCAR now at 6 o'clock. Our qualifying at 12:30 Eastern and our race at 2:30 Eastern. All of it on ESPN2. Welcome back to Montreal. You're looking at the Biosphere, built back in 1967 for Expo 67 on this man-made island. That's right, then when they dug out all the tunnels for the subway, that's where all the dirt came, and here we are racing on it today. Here's the double-duty drivers this weekend. You've got Clint Boyer, David Reagan, Greg Biffle, Carl Edwards, David Rudeman, the 5 that are going down to Pocono and back up to here. And right now, you see that it's Light, Vidovich, Brown, Darnell, and Chris Cook. In fact, Augie is standing by with Jack Arute.
And Marty, he's joined by Eric Darnell. I think these two guys are going to compare notes as far as what their job is going to be. Let's start with Augie first. You're filling in for David Reagan. So what are your instructions between now and the time Reagan comes in?
Just keep it on the track, get a good balance for the car, and see what they got.
Eric, last week we saw you get a little racy in practice before Carl Edwards relieved you of your duties. What was the reaction when Carl heard about that?
I don't know if Carl heard about that. I hope he didn't. But we're just trying to get the car close in practice. The City Financial Ford Fusion was pretty good last week. Carl got to get in it for the first practice, and just had a little bit of a close call there with the car that was a little bit slower. But our goal today is just to get this thing close. We're getting a lot of help from Boris Said. I've talked to him quite a bit, and he's talked to Drew, and kind of got our setups close for the second practice. And I'm going out there making sure the balance is decent, making sure we can keep brakes on the thing, and not trying to set any land speed records, just get the thing good for Carl tomorrow.
Now, tomorrow in qualifications, both of you will be engaged what euphemistically is called European-style qualification, groups of 5 and one group of 4 that'll go out for 9 laps. Let me start with you, Augie. Does that change the way you approach qualifying in any way?
No, actually we're going to, David and Carl have to start in the back anyway, so we're going to go out there and put a good lap in there, like Eric said, not make a land record speed. But, our job here is just get these cars balanced and ready for David and Carl and to come do their job. I got to thank Jack and Mike Kelly and Discount Tire for letting me do this. It's great. I like doing it.
All right, I don't want him to hear this, but do you realize that if you out-qualify him, that means Edwards will start at the back of the field, but in front of Reagan? A little pressure there?
Not really.
Not really.
No, we've actually already discussed this with Drew, and I don't think we're going to really put up any kind of a lap at all. We're just going to go out there and pretty much take the green, put in one lap, and then save the car and save the tires and the brakes for the race. This place is very hard on brakes, very hard on tires, and we're not going to do anything in qualifying that's going to hurt that. We're just going to. Carl's got to start in the back regardless. David's got to start in the back regardless. So it doesn't really matter what we do out there. Them guys are in.
And guys, that's one of the things that we will watch during our coverage of the race itself, because last year brakes was a huge issue. And if you're going to start in the back, how much brakes do you have left when you finally get your cars, if you do, to the front?
And if you remember, it was Kevin Harvick who was sent to the rear, and he managed to come back to win the race in what turned out to be a very eventful last few laps. And as you can see, we're waiting for the track to be put into proper shape. There seems to be an issue down in turns 6 and 7, and that's the area that we're focusing in on right now. And this is not the first time we've seen this happen here at this circuit.
Yeah, I mean, they've been working on this track for the last couple of days now. They run different classes of cars here, and the track's been tearing up just a little bit, Marty. They brought some folks in this morning about 6 o'clock, did some repaving, and they're trying to get this track in shape right now. But, I talk about tracks and track time. I mean, last year we had an open practice session here on a Thursday, and all the Cup drivers were able to come over, do some practicing, and get a little lap time on this track. Now, this year, Clint Boyer, David Reagan, Greg Biffle, Carl Edwards, and David Rudeman are not going to have any time whatsoever on this track. They're actually going to come from Pocono, get in the cars and race morning, Randy, and jump right in this track. And that's going to be a tough job, I would think, with no practice.
You ain't kidding. I'm sure they're going to be playing just follow the leader, but you can see a whole different area of this racetrack coming apart. And then you see a DP car blew up, so they're cleaning the racetrack, and now they have a surface issue too.
And those guys that are coming here on Sunday with no practice are going to have to negotiate the changing track conditions, and they have no practice under these conditions. So it might have something to do with it, but I don't believe this issue is going to be a big deal. They're working on it right now. They've been adjusting on it for the last couple of days. It's looking pretty good right now.
Well, one of the drivers who's doing double duty right here at Circuit Gilles Villeneuve in the Grand Am race and our race as well is Scott Pruett. There he is with Vince.
That's right, Marty, and Scott was on pole, qualified on pole for the sports car race today, so congratulations for that. How difficult is it to go from the nationwide car to the sports car back to the nationwide car? What's the challenge there?
Cornering and braking more than anything. This track is real tough on brakes, and it's funny. I jump in a 40 car and I got out there and all of a sudden it's like, oh crap, I gotta get this thing stopped. And then I jumped in for qualifying in the sports car, and all of a sudden I was stopping and it's like, oh, get back on the gas because it's not even close. So it takes a lap or two, but the Fastenal cars are running great. Lexus and with the Telmex car on the other side, I mean, the car's been fabulous since we put it on the track. The championship's going well, so so far so good. To have good luck going with both cars is is a real pleasure to deal with. Typically, you're dealing with one disaster on one side or the other.
But it's going, and you were fastest in the morning practice, so certainly a pole contender for the Nationwide Series here today as well. You haven't raced the Nationwide car since Mexico City. Is that difficult now to come back several weeks later after having not been in this car again?
It is, but you know, with us being fastest this morning, we were able to build on what we were doing down in Mexico. Overnight we made some bad decisions about how we want to do the setup on the car, and we paid for it in the race. I mean, we were trying to throw everything at the car at the end, trying to get something going, and we just had to settle for third. So we came back here and came back on some of those changes, fine-tuned some stuff. Brad and his guys are doing a great job as always. You know, the Fastenal Dodge, we put it on a track and it's fast. I mean, we were right out of the box. We were P1. I think we gave it up once. We took P1 back again. We went fast again. We ran long runs, a lot of fast laps. So we're just going to try and keep building on that, little fine tunes, and see what we can come up with.
No doubt about it, Marty. Scott Pruett's going to be one of those guys that the double duty drivers are going to be chasing when they come from the back of the pack tomorrow.
Well, and he mentioned the fact he was P1 in that first practice with by a good margin. I mean, he was at 95.1 miles an hour. He did that on lap 15 of 19. And no, we're not in Florida. That's really the St. Lawrence River right here in Montreal. A 25-mile-an-hour current, and you can go surfing. Back here at Montreal, the repair work seems to be concluding. We're getting word we could have cars on the racetrack for this final practice in about 5 minutes. And you can see them wrapping up out there in turns 6 and 7 on this 14-turn layout. Now, we mentioned the fact that the double-duty drivers are coming from Long Pond at Pocono. Let's show you where that is in the northeastern part of Pennsylvania. About 400 miles to the north, you find yourself in Montreal at Circuit Gilles Villeneuve. And there is the man-made island, Ile Notre Dame, and there are the cars in line. And of course, those 5 double-duty drivers present a different challenge for the Nationwide regulars, and we talked to them about the challenge it brings to them.
The double-duty drivers do a couple different things for us. When you beat them, they add confidence, and they legitimize the series.
If I can get on the racetrack and follow Kyle Busch or Matt Kenseth or Denny Hamlin or something like that, you know, they've got a lot of experience and definitely helped me as a driver.
If you want to be a Cup driver, you're going to have to race against these guys anyway, so you can learn even sooner in the Nationwide Series.
You're not thinking about, you know, Casey Kanan, Kyle Busch, or Tony Stewart, all those guys. It's not that big of a deal. There's still 43 cars out there like every other week.
Well, and as you see, one of those guys that you just heard from wants to measure himself against some of the double-duty guys, Landon Castle. What do you get from competing against some of the Sprint Cup regulars?
Oh, you just learn from them. I mean, that's a huge thing for me is, you know, just learn from the Cup guys every weekend, and when you beat them, it makes them an extra.
Well, what do you learn from? Is there something specific that you've been able to take and put in your black book after you've raced against the likes of Reagan and Carl Edwards, et cetera?
Just anything, you know, the line they're running or how they race their cars or how aggressive they are.
Let's talk a little bit about your ride. The 4 car is the last time you were in it was on a road course. What do you like about this car when you have to go left and right?
I just like these guys. You know, they're really helping me out. You know, keeping at my pace of learning the road course. It's only my second time doing it, so you know they're very helpful. Jeremy Wood, you know, crew chief in this thing, he's doing an awesome job. These guys built a beautiful race car from Phoenix Racing.
Well, Vince, one of the things that Landon told me before we went on the air is he likes the idea that unlike ORP 1 week ago where everything was compressed into one day, he likes multiple days. He says, because I'm not married, I got nothing else to do but be at a racetrack. That's what I love.
Can't complain about being at the racetrack. And this guy here, 19 years old, how cool it would be to be 19 and sitting in one of these cars. Speaking of Colin Brown, who was on pole at Mexico City the last time we were on a road course, and also on pole last week at ORP, but getting the car set up for Greg Biffle today. So what's the difference between, from a mindset perspective, of being the driver or being the guy that's getting it set up?
Well, you know, for me, I'm just excited to be in this 3M Ford Fusion. Like you say, it's great to be at the racetrack, but even cooler to be sitting in Greg Biffle's race car. You know, I know he's out there in Pocono doing a great job, and he's going to fly in here. But, you know, for me, just getting this car to drive pretty well. We're looking for that. We're looking for it to be comfortable to drive, easy to drive. And that first practice session, we struggled a little bit. Weren't getting full throttle quite. And we made a few adjustments on the car when we didn't have full throttle. Got full throttle there halfway through the session, and then went, wow, some of those changes we made weren't too good. So had to kind of go back, start over a little bit here, but I know my crew chief, Eddie Pardue, will have this thing tuned up here for the second session.
How about the balance of the race car, and is it getting in the corner, getting off the corner? The hear a lot of drivers talk about they're not getting drive off the corner.
Well, for us, we're strong on the brakes, getting down into the corner. A little bit tight in the center, you know, it just won't turn for us in the center, and then coming off the corner, we're pretty loose. Like I told my crew chief, it doesn't do anything great right now, but I'm sure he'll have it tuned up where it will. You know, I was down talking to Boris, said he was giving me some tips and advice. You know, he was pretty fast in that last practice session, so if we can do what Boris is doing, we'll be in good shape.
Look forward to seeing him out there, Marty.
Yeah, I'm sort of sad that he's not going to be running the whole race after the way he's been running a couple of weeks, and also with the way he did it in Mexico. Let's talk about a big weekend here in Montreal, because Friday Night Fights is right here tonight at 9 on ESPN2, a 10-round super middleweight bout. And then the Olympus U.S. Open Series women's tennis got Svetlana Kuznetsova and Dinara Safina. And of course, then we are back tomorrow with qualifying and the race right from here at Circuit Gilles Villeneuve. All of it on ESPN2. Some of the fans that are just waiting for practice to start here at Circuit Gilles Villeneuve in Montreal, Quebec, as we are race number 23 on the schedule for 2008 in the NASCAR Nationwide Series, and the track repair just finishing up. And let's take a lap, Rusty, and show the folks the 14 turns, 2.71 mile layout.
All right, we're going into turn 1 right now. Hard left-hander, exiting turn 2. Little passing right in this area. Now we're heading down into turn 3. Turn 3 is a really, really tough corner. A lot of passing possibly through there, through the S's, into turn 6 and 7, a very, very tight corner. A lot of drivers go off course right here. As they exit turn 7, this is kind of a long back straightaway into turn 8 and 9. Most of the passes are going to occur right through here. As they exit turn 9, they're going to go right down into the very last corner. I call it the hairpin. It's turn 10. There'll be some passing there also. Very tight hairpin, tighter than a track like Sonoma, California. Very tight. All right, exit turn 11, turn 12, and down the long back straightaway, about 160 miles per hour, down into second gear into turn 13. Exit turn 14, and then start accelerating, coming through the gearbox back to the start-finish line. And hey, guys, that's a lap here at Canada.
And you can see why it is so hard on brakes, because you get a lot of speed, and then you've got these sharp right and left-hand corners, and there's the finish line stripe as the salute to Gilles. That's what that means right there in French. Of course, French, the predominant language here in Montreal. The track history, well, was completed in 1978, and as we mentioned, it's a man-made island. All the dirt that came out of the tunnels from the subways helped build this. And then after Gilles Villeneuve was killed in Belgium in 1982, the track was named after him. In fact, he won the first Grand Prix of Canada at this track back in 1978. We're going to take one more break because we've been told from NASCAR officials it will be about 2 minutes as we will be getting practice underway. And that's the view from Montreal to Montreal in Canada. Well, after his win last weekend, can Jimmy Johnson make another statement, or will the always dangerous Kyle Busch answer back? It's the NASCAR Sprint Cup Series at Pocono, presented by Cheez-It on ESPN. Sunday coverage begins with NASCAR Countdown at 1 Eastern. Just log on to ESPN.com. That was the Olympic Basin. Remember, the 1976 Olympics were held here in Montreal. That was part of the venues, and you can see the garage area there where the cars are being worked on. Formula One also uses that area, and there's a good look at the rowing venue and the basin, and you can see all the cars parked on the other side. That's where we are, and you have to walk a long way.
That's amazing, Marty. The cars are parked on the right-hand side of it. You got to walk across a big wooden dock all the way across the water. I don't believe I've ever been to a racetrack where I had to do that before.
It reminds us of that Craftsman commercial when the guy doesn't repair the boat properly. And
kicks his tools up. I think we should take we could probably take a golf cart across that thing.
I'll let you try it. I'm not going to try that, Randy. That baby break on me, and I don't swim real well.
Hey, here's the sight we've been waiting to see. Race cars pulling out onto the track as there is Scott Wimmer in the 29. You had a quick glimpse of the 88 of Brad Keselowski. And Joey Logano, of course, right there in the 20 car. And this is going to be another test. We haven't seen Joey on a road course, and especially in these cars on a road course.
You know, I talked to him a little while ago, and he felt really confident. He said, you know, I'm having a little bit of problem with braking, but other than that, he said, it's a pretty simple course. And, Randy, everybody's telling him he's just got to watch his brakes, but he seems awful confident when I talk to him.
You know what? That's one thing he does not lack is confidence. And with his race team, this race car has won Mexico City. So he's in a good race team. You know, one of the hardest things, Rusty, is trying to get yourself in this racetrack. There's a lot of areas areas where you got to slow down to go fast.
Well, he was 18th on the speed charts of the 41 cars that took times. Now we are going to go under yellow, a full course yellow, so that NASCAR officials can have the drivers help evaluate the track and the repairs that they made out at turns 6 and 7. And it'll just give us another chance to talk about a few of the drivers. We mentioned Brad Keselowski. There he is in the 88. Boy, does he had a terrible week after last week's race at O'Reilly Raceway Park. During the event, in case you didn't hear, the transporter was broken into. Not only did they steal some race equipment, helmets, that kind of stuff, they took his passport. And of course, with us coming to Montreal, he literally spent all week trying to get a replacement, and it just barely made it.
You know what? I talked to Brad, and he has said he was going back to Michigan. Luckily, after Indy, got his birth certificate, went down, filled out about 4 hours of paperwork, and he had to do a special deal where they just sealed it, shipped it straight to Washington. They got it expedited, and they had it back on Wednesday afternoon.
And to make matters worse, of course, at ORP finished 19th, which snapped his consecutive top 10 streak, which that probably hurt just as much. Take a look at his last 9. You can see that he picked up his first career win back at Nashville, and 8 top 10s, 5 of those in the top 5, and his average finish 6.9, and that's why he's doing so well in the points, Rusty.
Yeah, I tell you, this kid's been real consistent. This JR Motorsports team has been, I'm not going to say better than I expected, but I mean, it is. I've got to say that. I expect them to be good, Marty, but they've been good every single week, and this kid has really matured as a driver. In the top 10, a threat to win this championship this year. Now a youngster trying to be a good road racer also.
He was 22nd on the speed charts this morning.
Okay, you know, Tony, you senior, told me last week in Indy that, you know, they built all new cars coming into this year, and that's where they picked up the most speed, is getting the new cars built.
Let's shift gears a little bit. Let's talk about why this track would tear up, and the difference obviously being the weight of these cars, the heat. When Formula One runs here, lighter cars, a little bit different scenario.
Well, Marty, I really don't think there's a reason that should be tearing up. And if this thing was probably done proper, a little bit better asphalt job, they probably wouldn't have the problem. But, I mean, a lot of the tracks don't. But it is a very, very tight corner. That could be some of the reason, because the drivers are slamming on the brakes so hard, picking the throttles up so hard on that very, very tight hairpin. Randy, I don't think I've seen a track where they have a corner this tight. I mean, you think of Sears Point, turn 11. It's narrow, but this is narrower.
You ain't kidding, and if it's not the track coming up, it's the tires coming apart. So that's something that you know, these side forces, these guys got it figured out. That I mean, we had the same trouble here last year. I'm surprised it took them so long to even attempt to finish this. You can see the heat coming off the racetrack.
Well, you get the STP colors coming into view. That is Marcus Ambrose, and of course, who can forget, if you were with us last year here at Montreal, the shootout with Robbie Gordon. I know Marcus hasn't forgotten about it.
The NASCAR Busch Series rolls north of the border. The Circuit Gilles Villeneuve on this demanding 14-turn road course. Marcus Ambrose in search of his first career NASCAR Busch Series win. Robbie Gordon behind him. Big pile up down in turn 2.
Robbie Gordon to the inside for the lead.
Ambrose goes back on him. Who is leading the race? When did the caution come out? Where are they going to put Robbie Gordon?
We need to get behind the 30, or we're going to get black flag. Get black flag after the race. I'm staying here.
They are putting the black flag up for Robbie Gordon. And indeed, Gordon will hit Ambrose.
If you want to know my opinion, I won the race. I'm not mad. I'm just disappointed.
We'll appeal it. We won this race. Kevin Harvick wins here in Montreal.
What a bizarre finish.
And to this day, we can have a good argument as to who actually should have won that race.
The guy that did the donuts.
That's about it. I'll tell you,
5 of them, no.
You can really tell why they get so aggressive on this racetrack. These turns are very, very tight. You take a look at turn 1 and 2, that's a tight turn, and that's where that accident just happened.
Well, I mean, we
a lot of speed, Randy, going in that corner.
Wait, I mean, when Robbie Gordon didn't get put back to his, they wanted him to go back to about 10th or 11th. You know, I mean, Stevie Wonder could have seen what was going to happen going into turn 1.
And it did. All right, well, Robbie's not here to relive that moment, so there you get a look at Marcos. We have now gone green flag racing, so we'll finally get to see some cars at speed and actually work this 14-turn layout.
They're coming into the hairpin right now. This is a very tight corner, and as they exit turn 10 right here, from that point right there, folks, all the way down into turn 13 is about 1.2 miles long. Drivers are accelerating almost up to about 160 miles per hour. So, Randy, when they get into turn 13, they got to get on the brakes, fourth gear, third gear, second gear, and that is a hairpin right-hand turn. It's a tough one where they're about to approach right now. Let's take a look at this.
Rusty, you think is this where Toyota's going to be hurting at the end of that long straightaway this year?
Well, I don't have the answer to that. I really don't. I mean, a lot of guys are talking about a good snapshot of how they're going to look at Michigan, stuff like that, but they've been running pretty good in practice. In fact, Joey Logano just popped up to fourth quick right now. Mike Wallace, another Toyota, sixth. But these times are going to change big time now as the drivers get some pressure built up in the tires and get some rhythm going again.
Get your first look at Jacques Villeneuve, the former Formula One world champion, as he is riding in the number 32 Grand Entry Racing. And right now I'm taking a look on the board. In the morning practice, Villeneuve was fifth quickest at 94.14 miles an hour. And let's get more on Jacques from Vince Welch.
Marty, the team already looking ahead to tomorrow, of course, in regards to strategy, fuel mileage, fuel conservation, talking with Jacques on the radio, encouraging him to turn the motor off and during these yellow flag laps and see how far he can coast, because they will do that tomorrow under yellow, under race conditions, to try to conserve fuel. So they're thinking ahead, certainly, and that's one of the tasks that you want to get accomplished when you're on this final practice session. But it's interesting, Villeneuve is such a celebrity here. Earlier today I saw a group of photographers all huddled around, and they were preparing to take a shot, and I was looking across and trying to figure out exactly what they were getting ready to take a picture of. And at that time Villeneuve came out of the Porta-John and they start snapping away.
That's how bad it is for these two, both Carpentier and Villeneuve. We saw smoke from the car behind, the 59 of Marcus Ambrose, and this was coming from underneath the engine area, guys. This is not good.
Well, you know what? I talked to Marcus right before this practice. They broke a gear. They broke a transmission, the tail end of the first practice, so they had to put another transmission in. They might have left the line loose. Obviously, there's some leak because that's what causes the smoke.
So he'll come straight through at turn 13 there, and then he'll pull it into the garage area where they can work on the car. And there he is. Let's go back and show you where we saw that first puff of smoke. That's more than a puff.
You ain't kidding.
Yeah, there's a lot of smoke coming out there. Could be a loose oil line. I actually saw, it looks like it's coming from the center of the car underneath the car, so Randy, it could be he ran over a curb and actually broke a line, or it could be a loose line, but it's definitely a leak, that's for sure.
Well, he only got one green flag lap in. He's 27th on the speed chart of 27 cars that have gone out so far. You take a look at the 20 of Joey Logano and the 29 of Scott Wimmer. Logano right now 7th quickest on the speed chart. Wimmer 12th.
Marty, they're entering turn 3 right now, and this is a real tough corner. A lot of guys talk about they lose the brakes here. Take a look at this. Turn 3, turn 4. They're in second gear right now, and it's so tight they just can't get the brakes cooled down. Drivers tell me they in the race they really got to be slow through here. They're just not charging the car real hard, because if they do, they'll tear the brakes right off the car because there's not enough cooling, because they don't have the speed to cool it.
That's one of the things in road course racing, you know, to discipline yourself to slow down. That's one of the things drivers want to be so aggressive from point A to point B. But on road course, it's all about momentum, and that's one thing you learn. And you see, you don't want to cut in the grass right there.
Joey, that's off-roading, and that's not permitted.
And that was the entry of turn 8, and that is a corner where drivers tell me you get the most passing done right there. So he sailed that baby down in the corner. It's a little too hot, got off course. No harm, no foul.
The guy behind him passed him.
And let's take a look now and get a view of the number 9 of Patrick Carpentier, as Carpentier has moved to the top of the speed charts.
You know, this doesn't surprise me. He had a great run here last year. In fact, the run he had here in Montreal really woke up a lot of guys on the Gillette Everham team, and that's the reason he actually got the ride, because of how good he did at this particular track. And Tell you what, Marty, I walked in here today, and when they saw him, they were cheering. They love this guy up here.
As soon as he gets on the racetrack, it's amazing to see the fans here when a Canadian goes by. Boy, they just stand up and clap.
Well, he's going to be our in-race reporter, and all you have to do is log on to ESPN.com, and keyword is Ask the Driver. Submit your question. Maybe tomorrow your question will be asked by Rusty to Patrick Carpentier. And you mentioned Canadians. We should clarify. I mean, he's a Quebecer, and there are 2 Quebec residents. He and Jacques Villeneuve, they get special treatment here in Quebec. I mean, there's no ifs, ands, or buts. The other guys are that other part of Canada.
Well, you got to tell me why they get that special treatment. I want to know that.
That's not fair.
You have to understand, there's a group in Quebec that would like to form their own country. That's how different it is up here. The primary language here in Montreal and Quebec is French, and they are very proud. Now, and talk to Ron Fellows, he'll say if those 2 weren't there, they would support me. But because those 2 are there, the Quebecers will be following those 2. Vince, what's going on in the garage area?
Well, the 59 car, Marcus Ambrose, is up on the jacks, crew underneath it, and as Randy LaJoie mentioned, a transmission issue in that initial practice, and I was just speaking with team members, and they're cleaning up the transmission leak, just trying to figure out at this point if it's the transmission or the lines going to it, but they're getting it cleaned up, and they should have that diagnosed very shortly, but certainly lost time for the 59.
And as you finish up, Vince, we can tell you that Jacques Villeneuve has now taken over the #1 spot, 1:44.5 seconds. Carpentier second, 1/10 of a second behind. And the folks here in Montreal are just loving that. And we mentioned the other Canadian, one of several in the field. Here's Ron Fellows. He calls Toronto his hometown. Let's go for a ride and check the telemetry, guys.
Yeah, he's going into turn 3 right now. On the brake a little bit, back into throttle. Coming up into turn 5, a little dog leg to the right. Now we get up into turn 6. The guys, this is a very tough corner right here. A lot of guys sliding off the racetrack in this particular area. Fellows does a good job negotiating that. Exit turn 7 now. Now he's setting up. In the race, this is where you can set up a good pass going into turn 8. Really fast getting down on this one. Let's take a look at this one here, guys. On the brakes really hard. He's following Scott Pruett there. Through 8. Exeter turn 9 going down to the hairpin there, Randy.
You know what I noticed? You watch Pruett and you watch Fellows. These guys aren't as aggressive on all these bumps that everybody else is too.
Well, one thing I want to see after they leave the hairpin and exit the hairpin right here, how fast are these guys going by the time to get down into turn 13? Because this is 1.2 miles long, guys. Awful far. Let's take a look at the left-hand side of your screen, the miles per hour. Let's see what kind of miles per hour we can build up as we get into turn 13.
He just jumped up to #2 on the board with those last laps. So Fellows is one of the key road racers in the country.
Up to 167. Just for a
awful
brief
fast.
moment.
Hard on the brakes right there. He's exiting turn 14, and that area to the right, that green area, folks, if they miss the corner and if they stop there during the race, if they miss the corner and stop and take back off, NASCAR will not penalize them. But they got to do that if that happens in the race, and it will.
And you mentioned hitting the curbs. Remember last year, Carl Edwards in this race clipped the curbs so much they ended up doing damage to the underside of the car.
He ripped the truck arms out of the car and had to come in and repair that. You know, if you rip the truck arms out, that means you're halfway. Half the car is over those curbs. So that's something that some of these curbs can take it and some of them can't.
Well, right now, Fellows is in second place. I mean, I take a look at the top 4 here. Villeneuve, Fellows, Patrick Carpentier, and Boris Setta, all top 4 road race ringers, I call them. That's right. And they're just right at the top of the list right now.
Well, you're looking at the man in this field that has won more road course races in this field than anybody else. In fact, let's take you back and show you a little history. All 3 of Ron's wins came at the same track. Back in June of 1999 at Watkins Glen. And then, of course, in 2000, he did it again at the Glen. And he wasn't quite done yet. It's his home away from home as far as road course racing in the Nationwide Series. He did it again in 2001. And Ron Fellows will definitely be a player this weekend in Montreal. Welcome back to Montreal. That is the St. Lawrence River, and oh, this looks more like us at Bristol Motor Speedway or Richmond. Spinning around and having some fun. It's a great place to vacation up here in Canada. As trackside, we are under a yellow. We'll explain why in just a moment. Here are the top speeds and times, and that's 104 seconds, translates to 1:44.5 for Villeneuve. And yes, the road course specialists are right where we're expecting them, but Brad Coleman and Stephen Wallace, two of the regulars, 5th and 6th. Now, unfortunately for Brad, the bad news is he's the reason for our caution.
You know what? You look at 10th place, Andrew Ranger. This guy come from Champ Kart. Now he's in the Canadian Tire Series, and he won that Series Division Championship last year.
So he's another one of our road course specialists. There's Brad's fastest lap, 1:45.3 seconds. All right, let's get an update on Joey Logano. Jack?
Well, fellas, you see the crew hard at work on the front plastic valance. You were talking also before we went to break about the fact you got to be careful with the curbs. Well, that's why they're replacing the valance. They also want to raise it just a little bit. They've also changed the camber in the front end of the car. Trying to find, as you guys have talked about before, Rusty and Randy, trying to find the right balance for this youngster, Joey Logano, who's here in Montreal for the first time. Guys?
Well, you know, it is all about balance. It's all about rhythm. You know, understanding how to negotiate these corners, how much brake to use, how much not to use. And the engines that are in these cars, Randy, less horsepower this year. They got to keep this momentum up also.
Absolutely. And what I did notice in a lot of these cars, a lot of camber issues in the front of these things. These guys are playing with camber to get these things to go around the corner. One way to get the car to go around the corner is just add a lot of camber.
Lean the tires in at the top as much as you possibly can to get a turn left and right. You know, another thing about this racetrack, real quickly, is that the curbs here are so tall that these drivers got to be careful, or else they will tear the balances off these cars. That looks like what happened with Joey Logano here.
Let's quickly check in with Vince. What's going on with Scott Pruett? He's 29th on the speed charts.
Well, Marty, very unusual situation for Pruett. They brought him in, and he said that he felt like the front end was not right, and both front tires were 9 pounds down. So they're not quite sure. They took the tires off. They had checked the tire pressures before they had sent him out. And all of a sudden now they're 9 pounds down. So they put 4 fresh rubber on. They're going to go out and make sure they don't have a problem with this set. But I would look for Scott Pruett to start working his way up that speed chart very soon.
That sounds like a faulty gauge to me.
Yeah, correct, and that happens a lot. You know, that's stuff that a lot of guys have to be careful. And you know what? Kudos to Scott. I mean, that's how good that guy is. He said something wrong with the front end. They come in and check the air pressure, and it's way down.
Yeah, because you're going to get yourself into a big pile of you-know-what if you don't get that figured out. Take a look at Max Papis as he is just finally making his first appearance on the track as we are well into this practice session. NASCAR has extended this practice to 3:30 Eastern time because of the delay that we had, and Max just getting it up to speed. We talked with Max this morning, and just like everybody else, Rusty, brakes and the choice of the pads. And it was interesting. He was talking about, you know, you might not want the absolute best pad for grabbing because you'll wear it out faster.
He's concerned about pad taper. The brake pads actually tapering too much because they just can't get enough air to these cars to cool the brake pads down. So, you know, that's his opinion. There's a lot of other drivers out there with brake issues and brake opinions because they know one thing. They can't drive the car as hard as they want every single lap because the track is just too tight. They'll tear it up. So a lot of, you've really got to be smooth around this racetrack if you're going to finish.
Jack, you've got more on Max?
Well, yeah, as you guys were talking about, Max Papis is one of the drivers that will be racing both today in the sports car segment of this weekend and in the stock cars, and he has added incentive. He found out just about a week ago that his lovely bride is expecting their second child. I had a little fun with him talking about that, and I said, man, you're getting old. He says, no, I just got to race a lot more. My family keeps getting bigger and bigger.
Well, Max made his debut in the sports cars years ago. I remember we were covering the Rolex 24. He was driving for Ferrari, and they were trying to track down the leader. He was driving qualifying laps for over an hour, and it was just a dazzling show, and that's where he got the nickname Mad Max.
You watch him in the Daytona Prototype Series, there's a lot of other drivers that definitely call him Mad Max.
He's aggressive, boy. He loves this race. He pays a lot of attention to it. You normally see Bobby Hamilton Jr. in this number 25 car, guys, but this week it's Morissette. And he's 4th quick right now, doing a good job in that car.
Well, they said they built a new road course car, and Bobby couldn't reach the pedals.
Oh, no, you just, Bobby, we'll elbow him here. We know you're watching. So as Boris continues, remember, Boris has a little score to settle with Marcus Ambrose. He may take the role of Robbie Gordon this year because they had a little get-together earlier this season when Boris felt like Ambrose took him out and said that he would settle it when he got his next opportunity. This may be it.
I'll tell you, it might be it, but you know, a lot of the times they get over that pretty quick. Hey, Max Papis just went to P1. So it's Papis, Boris Said, and Villeneuve right now. So these road race specialists, they're getting after it, that's for sure.
He took it over by 4/10 of a second. Now that is a foot cam that is on the left side. It shows you Boris, who has more of the traditional style of the heel toe. Marcus Ambrose, we can tell you, has just gone to P1 as everybody's picking up the tempo.
You know, Rusty, I remember watching these foot cameras. I remember you had one in your car, you know, and they had a road race, I think Ricky Rudd, and the difference in styles. Ricky was a whole lot smoother than you were. But he was behind you. I don't know.
There was a lot of guys a lot smoother than me, Randy. I wasn't really good at the smooth part. I was a little out of control, but tried to get the job done. You know, these new transmissions, they don't have to hardly ever touch the clutch any longer. And back then, take a look at Boris's feet. We just missed it a little bit there. But he actually heel toes. He'll put his foot on the brake pedal and roll it over on the gas pedal when he shifts. And they don't. He's about the only one that does that nowadays.
He's definitely the traditionalist, the old school when it comes to that technique.
We brought Boris up to Watkins Glen, and he got in my car. We had all the telemetry on it, and he helped me a lot to figure out my points and not go over the curves at different zones. So I qualified second to Ron Fellow. So during happy hour, Junior leaves pit road before me, and we left, and everything Boris told me not to do is what Junior was doing. I mean, his car, I don't think the tires touched the ground for half the lap.
Vince, it looks like Boris is coming in. What's the latest?
Well, it's interesting. I spoke with Boris Said about that confrontation at Mexico City that you guys were talking about involving Boris Said and Marcus Ambrose. Taking a look at that as the two got together, Ambrose said he didn't mean to get in to the back end of Boris Said. Said felt like Ambrose did not respect him, and Boris Said promised Gary Cogswell, the crew chief for that 59 car, that he would remember and pay back. I talked with Boris this afternoon about that. He said, I'm not here to wreck Marcus Ambrose, but believe me, I haven't forgotten. It's safe to say he's not on my Christmas card list. So you know that the drivers are remembering, but they certainly hope that they're not trading paint together this weekend.
Yeah, we'll find out when they get together the first time on the track. Marcus Ambrose and Max Papis are 1-2, followed by Carpentier, Boris Said, and Scott Pruett has found some life. 3 laps in, he's now 5th on the speed chart, followed by Villeneuve. Coming off his win last weekend, Jimmy Johnson's going to try and make another statement, or will dangerous Kyle Busch answer back? The NASCAR Sprint Cup Series at Pocono, it's presented by Cheez-It, and it's on ESPN Sunday. Our coverage begins with NASCAR Countdown at 1 o'clock Eastern. Got a report that we've got some breaking news from the pit lane. What's going on, Vince?
Well, I talked with Brad Parrott about what the issue was in regards to the 2 front tires for Scott Pruett, and as the guys in the booth, Rusty and Randy, suggested maybe it was a faulty gauge. I asked Brad if that was the case. He said, no, the valve stems were coming out of both front tires. I fired my tire guy.
Hey, you know, Brad did it for years for you, Rusty. I mean, when I first drove from Moroso, Brad was your tire guy over there at Penske for a long time.
Okay, that's amazing. I mean, if that's what's actually happening, I don't know if that's a Goodyear problem or the tire guy's problem, but have all the valve stems loose inside there, Randy, that's pretty abnormal, I would think.
Those
Vince?
tires.
Rusty, Brad indicated that it was definitely not a Goodyear issue. It was his tire guy's issue, and that's why he made the move. As he told me, I fired him.
He fired him.
Period.
Well,
okay.
I'll tell you
That's
what.
a long way from home.
It's a long way from home. That could really turn into a disaster, though, on the race weekend. There's no doubt about that. If all those tires were left loose like that, but guys, I will tell you, that's very uncommon. I haven't heard of that in a long time.
And if Brad's really mad, he could take his passport, and that could really be a hard time getting home.
Maybe it was contract labor. He's Canadian already.
I don't know.
He's in there apologizing to his driver right now, bringing him up to speed, what went wrong, why that happened.
All right, here's a couple of our double-duty drivers, Augie Vidovich in the 6 and Chris Cook in the 99. Of course, they're subbing for David Reagan and David Rudiman, respectively.
And Chris Cook, he has his little driving school. He's a driving instructor for road courses. There's a lot of guys that have gone through, and Chris has helped a lot.
He just made the classic pass getting down in the turn 10 hairpin, I call it, underneath Augie Vidovich right there. And we'll see a lot of that tomorrow during the race.
Well, Cook is 13th on the speed charts, and Vidovich is 31st, and that's why you saw him get around so easily. And take a look as Augie lights him up.
Well, you know what? That's not helping. Well, I mean, we heard him earlier. They want to stay on course. They want to get a balance, but they also don't want to burn these tires off. You flat spot a tire, you don't want a tire to come apart here.
Well, these guys don't have many sets of tires at practice. I think they've got 6 total sets. And the last thing they want to do is flat spot them and burn them up in practice, because they want to stay on this set as long as they possibly can. Then do a qualifying attempt, then do a bonsai run, I call it, and have about 5 good sets of tires left for this race.
You see the crowd in the background there, and it is an excellent turnout. Remember, this is a Friday afternoon, and we have the Grand Am race still to come today, and of course with Carpentier and Villeneuve in the field. Jack, what's the latest going on down in pit lane?
Well, Eric Darnell filling in, as we said at the beginning, for Carl Edwards. You see what the concern for the brakes are, to the point where almost every team, when they come in, for even if in the case of Darnell, to make a camber change, they add these high-speed blowers to all 4 corners of the car to try and get the caliper and the wheel cooled down. Brakes are going to be a big issue during this race, guys, and they're already trying to conserve them, especially the pads themselves.
Well, and road course racing is a series of compromises. You can't be bonsai. You cannot do that lap after lap. We've got 74 laps here, 14 turns, and it's a matter of pacing yourself to put yourself in that position, correct?
I totally agree with you, Marty. It is all compromised, and there are tracks that you can run hard at every single lap. Like you can run hard at Watkins Glen. You can run hard at Sears Point, but here you can't. You just got to really train yourself not to over-abuse your equipment in this particular race, because it is so hard on brakes.
And discipline is the hardest thing as a race car driver to do, because you want to go as fast as you can every single lap. And if you do that here, the last 20 laps, you're going to be pumping your brakes before every brake stop. And, man, that's not a lot of fun.
Taking a look at young Colin Brown, and he's 14th right now on the speed charts.
Same car that won the pole in Mexico City.
You know, we were talking about this in our meeting. I'm still curious as to why Colin's not in this car this weekend. Why make Biffle do the double duty? He's not in the championship chase. And Colin sat on pole at Mexico on our other road course race.
Look, it's going the wrong way.
And that's not the direction that you want to find yourself going to. That's Trevor Boys and the Johnny Davis-owned machine. We have 30 minutes now left in this practice session. No harm, though. He didn't hit anything, so he'll get it back on track.
Maybe he had some family in the stands just waving hi to.
You know, Marty, you go back talking about Colin Brown driving the 16 car and why isn't he in it full time for this week? I mean, a lot of this stuff is dictated by sponsors. Sponsors is a very important area for them. They say, hey, we want this guy at this track or that guy in that track. And things change. You know, a lot of people are asking me, why do you have Max Papis in the 64 when Stremmy's been doing so good? If it's just planned out that way in the beginning of the year. And Max, we want to try to get a win. And maybe they feel like Greg Biffle's definitely got more potential on this road course than Colin does. It could be something that simple. There's always a sponsorship reason for it, that's for sure.
And you know, Colin's sitting there, is like, man, Greg, stay in Pocono, please. Have the weather go bad. I want to drive this car here. I'm having too much fun.
Well, he's coming off his career best finish of 2nd place last week, Vince.
I spoke with Colin Brown about the situation that you guys were talking about, why he was not in the car, and he said, you know, I think Greg just wants to drive it because this track is so much fun. He said, I was only scheduled to be in the car at Nashville and Mexico City, and I've already driven 3 extra races, Milwaukee, Daytona, ORP. He said, I'm just happy to have an opportunity to get it set up for Greg here this weekend. So certainly Colin Brown would like to be in the car, but also understands that it's not his seat right now, and Biffle's going to be in it when he wants to be.
Well, thanks for the update. And I'll tell you what, he did a great job last weekend at ORP. And there we've got a car, and I can't make out 61. Who that is right now. Oh, the 61 car. That's Stan Barrett. And it looks like we've got a full course yellow out, and that'll slow everybody down. With less than 30 minutes to go here in this final practice session here at Circuit Gilles Villeneuve. So Stan Barrett is the one that's off to the side in the 61. Take a look at the top 10 in the speed chart, and this will be their lap times. And remember, 60 seconds, so it's actually 1 minute 43.1 seconds for Marcus Ambrose through Max Papis, Scott Pruett, Carpentier, Barset, Jacques Villeneuve, and hey, guy by the name of Wallace. It's your boy, number 10.
Good job. Hope he stays there. I'd like to get him up to the
Back here in Montreal at Circuit Gilles Villeneuve, let's check in on the news and notes of NASCAR. And they announced earlier this week Mexico City will not be part of the 09 Nationwide Series schedule. We'll talk more on that in a moment. And of course, the organization apologized for the fiasco at the Brickyard 400 and vowed to fix the tire issue for next year. And Jimmy Johnson announced that he will run Watkins Glen in the JR Motorsports number 48 Chevrolet. So that should be fun to watch as well. And while we wait for the cars to go back out, good decision, bad decision to not go back to Mexico? What do you think?
Well, I don't know. I love going to Mexico. It was a lot of fun. I raced it the very first year, finished 6th, I think, down there. The fans are fantastic, but you know, I remember when we went to Japan, the goal was to spread worldwide attention to the sport of NASCAR. And it's pretty well the same goal down in Mexico. Go down there and race a little bit, see how it turns out. They knew they weren't going to stay down there forever. It was kind of just to go down and check them out. It was a good time. Everybody enjoyed it. Now it's time to move on and do something different.
You know what? And what they also did down there, they got the NASCAR Corona Series down there, which has got that Mexico Series NASCAR sponsors and promotes really up and running. So, you know, they did the homework. They went there. We had some good races, and I think it's all crowd dictated. We lost a lot of people there over 4 years. I mean, we went from 100,000 down to 30,000, and I think Iowa's a lot closer than it is Mexico City.
Oh, are you hinting that maybe Iowa will get that date? A track owned by somebody else sitting in this booth?
Maybe.
Oh, well, we'll have to wait and see. Look at him. He's not even looking at us right now.
He's cheesing, though.
He's not. He's got his hands up, folks. He says, I don't want to talk about this. I don't know anything. I know nothing.
Good click.
Let's check in with Jack with Ron Hornaday.
Well, Ron Hornaday is watching the clock as we're counting down to just 15 seconds left in the practice, and he really hasn't had a lot of time, fellas, out on the racetrack. The car has been up on the jack stands, and they continue to work on it. What's the issue, Ron?
There's no issue. We're just trying to get the thing better. A lot of guys are putting tires on right now, so we don't always stack up with this Camper World Chevrolet. So we're trying to get the balance of the brakes right. Brakes are going to be an issue tomorrow, so we just want them perfect, and hopefully we can get the heat temperature perfect in the brakes.
Is there anything you can do as a driver to try and save brakes? I know like at Martinsville you can, but what about on a road course?
I did that last year, and you know, after the race we had more than half the pad left, so this track is so tough on brakes, and you don't know what you can save and what you can't. So we'll do what we got to do. Heck, I hope we can save them, and hope we have some at the end.
Fellas, I want to show you one thing as we take a look at the crew working on the back end of these cars and working on the brakes. On each of the calipers, if you look over the crew member's shoulder, you'll actually see an adhesive temperature gauge. Each and every time these cars come in, there's a brake manufacturer's representative here taking these measurements, and they can actually read it like a thermometer. At the end of a race, they don't actually bust those thermometers, but it's all red from the bottom all the way to the top.
And whatever you do, don't touch that metal part right there. It is
thank you, Mr. Obvious.
Ron Hornaday second right now in the truck points, 15 behind Johnny Benson, and there's Stephen Wallace. And Stephen, 10th on the speed charts here at the Nationwide Series, with 5 Hour Energy, the sponsor this weekend, and for 4 races in all. And so Stephen with some new colors this week. We'll keep an eye on the 66 as well, as there's the new paint scheme on the hood. Goes throughout. Let's talk a little bit more about what's going to happen the rest of the weekend, because boy, do we have a full plate for you, just like last week. We've got NASCAR Sprint Cup Series qualifying tonight at 3:30, and then NASCAR Now at 6 Eastern, and then tomorrow's happy hour at 10 a.m., and then qualifying here in Montreal at 12:30 Eastern with our race at 2:30. And all of it's real easy to remember. Just turn on ESPN2 and just leave it there. No channel surfing allowed. We're back with more practice. They extended it till 3:30, the bottom of the hour. Stay with us. Well, we've got NASCAR Sprint Cup Series action coming up your way on Sunday at 1 o'clock Eastern on ESPN and ESPN HD. Jimmy Johnson trying to go for 2 in a row after the win at the Brickyard. Does Kyle Busch get back into the win column? It's the Sprint Cup Series at Pocono, presented by Cheez-It on ESPN Sunday. Our coverage begins with NASCAR Countdown at 1 o'clock Eastern. Morissette is stopped on course, and we have another full course yellow. We think maybe they might have been checking to see how far they could go on a tank of fuel and pick it up. Vince, you got the answer on that?
I do have the answer, and the answer is they did run out of fuel, but they weren't doing it to check and see how far they could go on a tank of fuel. They just, oops, ran out of fuel.
That's not a bad thing to have happen to you. You know, everybody wants to know how much fuel will these things pick up, but you don't want to waste that time in practice doing it. You want to work on your car, so now they have no choice. They can go back and actually see how much gas it took.
Jack, you've got more?
Well, yeah, Marty, remember that there's been some engine modifications and changes in the rules from last year to this year. They reduced the horsepower a little bit, and then, of course, we talked about it, and we were all over it 1 week ago when Toyota was forced to use that tapered spacer. So there is a little bit of blind side to coming here to Montreal and racing on this road course. I've noticed a number of teams actually weighing the fuel to get the correct poundage, so they get the exact amount at 7 pounds a gallon, putting it in the car. Nobody wants to run out in the middle of the racetrack, but what they are trying to do is they're trying to build their black book about what the fuel mileage will be, because the expected fuel mileage, according to my early indications, are, guys, it's going to be a little bit better than it was 1 year ago because of the reduction in horsepower.
Well, Randy, you talked to somebody who said they think they could go 5.1 per gallon, which would be 34 laps.
That's right, and I come out of the Childress camp, and you know they said from last year to this year they definitely lost horsepower and gained fuel mileage, but really the tanks are smaller, so it's about a 2 or 3 lap difference.
Let's bring in the Toyota issue, because now we're starting to see, after 2 practices, the tapered spacer, the addition that was made last week. Right now, Jacques Villeneuve is the top Toyota, 6th, and then you have to drop down to the 12th position with Marks in the 10 car, Justin Marks, and then Chris Cook in the 99. 12th and 13th. So those are the top Toyotas.
Well, you know, if they just put them on par with everybody else, there were some of those Toyotas that were better. So I think now by that smaller tapered spacer, they're on par with everybody else now.
And the question begs to be asked, because of the taper spacer, will they now get even better fuel mileage? And our general consensus might be yes.
Yeah, some say yes. Some say, hey, they're the same horsepower as everybody else now, so it's not going to make a big difference. Marty, I think we just got to wait and see what's going to happen here yet. I mean, it's hard to figure fuel mileage at this particular track. They're in and out of the throttle so much. A driver can do so much for fuel mileage getting around this place. Nobody really knows what they're going to get right yet.
Absolutely. If you short shift, if you let the power and the speed of the corner carry you through rather than being on the brakes hard and then the throttle hard. Talking about the Toyotas, 15 wins this year, 14 by Joe Gibbs Racing, and you can see how many laps they've led, most of them by Kyle Busch. And we've just gone back to green flag racing here at practice for the NASCAR Nationwide Series at Circuit Gilles Villeneuve. You're looking at Stephen Wallace, and we're thinking with 10 minutes left, guys, everybody's going to try and do some qualifying sims.
You know what? That's what happens right here late in practice. The guys are going to get out there. Hopefully these guys don't get off course, because you can get a lot of these guys that really want to better their starting positions, and And as we see Steven going through, he's very smooth so far.
One of the things you pointed out, though, Rusty, is it's all the way around, so you really can't afford to tape it up too much because you'll generate too much heat in the engine.
No, you're exactly right.
Just broke a dry shaft. Need to back that up. Dry shaft just come right out onto the car.
Amazing. That car just shot the dry shaft out of it. Incredible.
Yeah, and he's dropping.
Exactly right.
Try and get that baby off of the race line, and that's what he's trying to do. Best thing probably be just to stop. And he finally does.
They got a radio? Can he hear you?
I don't know. Not to me. I know that.
If we back that up, you can see him come out of that turn. It looked like something exploded under the car and it shot the dry shaft out.
Go back and take a look.
The car looks pretty normal right now. It looks like everything's just,
right
it
there.
just shoots it out right there. Whole entire dry shaft. It looks like the transmission and dry shaft just exploded under the car. Not really sure what caused that.
U-joint, a universal joint could have went bad. And one good thing is, here it is. And that's on an upshift.
Vince, you've got more?
That's right. Stephen Wallace on the radio talking about it is the drive shaft and how it has affected the entire inside of the car, and he's hurting a little bit as well. So it's certainly not a comfortable situation at this moment for Stephen Wallace. We'll look forward to seeing him get back in. He sounds like he's okay, but said that got into his leg a little bit. So he's hurting somewhat.
Looks like he's walking around okay.
I've had a dry shaft sling out on me, and it comes into the seat of the car.
Looks like he's limping just a little bit, like the dry shaft might have hit him in the leg when it exploded under the car. And I tell you, going that fast, Randy, that thing blows out from underneath the car, something's going to happen, and that's pretty wild there.
That's right. The universal joint's right about your knee, so from your knee back is all acceptable to that dry shaft. It come out, it was in, you can see it was big time bent. So if that thing's whipping around under there at 7,000 RPM, it does kill the inside of these race cars. We'll have to take a look at that later on.
I think NASCAR allows one transmission change for this event. But if they don't, this car will probably have to go to the back of the field.
Before qualifying, you are allowed a transmission change.
Well, he was 9th on the speed charts in this final practice session. And we'll have to wait for the final diagnosis as to what actually happened here. But we noticed this last year in the race. I mean, this track is hard on equipment, and we're seeing it again already this year.
Early on, we had Marcus Ambrose break a transmission in the very first practice. And then now with this, we've seen this is the second one that at least we know of. There's probably another 3 or 4 that we're not even aware of.
Well, remember Boris said last year in the race he was running real well until the very end, had an engine problem that put him on the sidelines. And
a lot of shifts around this racetrack, 15 to 19 different shifts, Randy, around this track. So it's pretty hard on equipment, but this is something that should have never happened. So it'd be interesting to see what the crew finds.
Some kind of part failure.
Yeah, something like that. You know, it's just, it's racing, right?
Yeah, that's why we all do this, but we hate this type.
Well, the problem for everybody else is we may run out of time here. It's about 6 minutes, 30 seconds until the checkered, unless NASCAR decides to extend the session even a little further. Jack, what's the latest you're hearing from down in pit lane?
Well, Marty, what I'm hearing is a sincere sense of urgency for a lot of these cars. As you and the guys up topside have alluded to, they wanted to tape off a little bit, put on a set of new Goodyear Eagles, and make a flyer and try and do a qualifying sim. They're all stacked up down here, but they don't use a lot of tape, guys, because as you said, they've got to go one complete circuit before they can even simulate the qualifying. But right now, everybody's just, what's the old cliche, champing at the bit, because they want to see this thing go back green and take advantage of a flying simulated qualifying effort in this final practice session.
You know, Jack, one of the big problems they're going to have, though, is the track's got oil dry all over the place, and how are they going to get a real smooth, clean, fast lap if the track doesn't have any grip in it? You take a look at this, guys. It's going to be tough to get that thing cleaned up where these guys can really hammer down.
Let's check in the garage area with Vince.
Well, just as Jack Arute was addressing the fact that for some of these teams, these next 10 minutes or less are critical. And the case in point with the 25 car here of Boris said, even though he's 5th on the speed chart, you'd think they would be happy enough with that. But I was speaking with his crew chief just a moment ago, and he says, we're not happy with the car. It can be a lot better. Yeah, we're 5th on the chart, but we know it's got a lot better in it. But they're trying to make some changes and get back out there. And if you don't get an opportunity to do so because of the current track situation, then these guys aren't going to have those questions answered when they come out for qualifying tomorrow.
They're strapping on the new Goodyears, hoping that they get another shot at this racetrack, the 2.71 mile layout here at Circuit Gilles Villeneuve. And you can see the NASCAR officials inspecting all the corners as we are under another full course situation. I'm being told that Stephen Wallace is inside that vehicle, did not go back in the ambulance, but he's going back in that vehicle to the pit area.
Yeah, he didn't get hurt. He just got stranded. That's a long walk from where he broke that transmission.
A long walk to the parking lot.
It's a long walk anywhere out here, Randy. I mean, this is a long way around this place. You got to park the cars across the water, walk across this bridge. And if you get stuck out there, hard to get back in. Take a look to the right, folks. All the cars are parking over there.
You ride a Gopher.
Yeah, you look over, right over in this area. That's where you park. And then you got to get across that water. It's a long way.
And no one gets access to the helicopter in the background there except the guy who owns it. We don't know who that is. All right, let's check in again with Vince. You've caught up with Scott Pruett.
Yeah, the 40 car's got a little left front damage to it as well, and the crew's working on it. Scott, what happened?
A guy didn't see me. I was on the inside of him in a hairpin, and we were kind of jammed up behind a few guys. So he was trying to make the crossover move, and I just happened to be there. So, you know, just a little bit of fender. It's no big deal. The car's good. The Fastenal car's running real good. It got kind of messed up there at the end because it was, you know, caution, green, and then the track just got oiled down. So we're reasonably happy tomorrow. Get the car back in shape, but I think things look good.
We know that there was some track maintenance being done at the before the session actually got started. Did you see any ill effects of that?
Yeah, not really. I mean, it looks like the guys are getting in place, put back together pretty nice. I mean, they do this for a living. So with just the first couple laps, a little bit more, it's kind of like a cement dust on the track, but it blew off and everything was good.
There you go, Marty.
And you saw there where Scott right now third on the charts behind Marcus Ambrose and Max Papis, and just ahead of Patrick Carpentier, Barrichello, and Jacques Villeneuve. Now that's one of the sets of spotters. You can't really see the entire racetrack from anywhere in one place. You've got to have several sets around, and you really have to rely on your mirrors and your instincts when you're out there. And you heard about what happened with Scott, and he had a little contact, and you heard what happened there. Let's talk a little bit about what's going to be coming up on the weekend, because when we get done here, we're going to be heading over to Pocono for Cup qualifying, and then NASCAR Now at 6 o'clock Eastern. And then tomorrow we'll have Sprint Cup Series Happy Hour at 10 a.m. And then we'll be back here at 12:30 Eastern for Nationwide Series qualifying and our race at 2:30 Eastern. And the easiest way to do it, as we said before, it's all on ESPN2. Just lock in the dial, throw away that channel changer, and you'll be with us for the entire day.
Not a bad thing to do if you're a motorhead. I think I just get something cool to drink and sit there and watch ESPN2 all day long.
There you go.
How many sets of spotters do guys have? Does anybody know?
I don't know for sure, but knowing when I came here for Formula One that there were at least 3 areas that you can get to where it would help to have somebody. But in Formula One, they don't basically use spotters. But when we were around the track, you could see, if you were in 3 different areas, you could see pretty much the entire track.
That's because Formula One doesn't pass.
Well, okay. Well, there you go. Now we're going to have some phone calls on that one. That's Randy LaJoie, ladies and gentlemen. His phone number is 555.
Oh, you 812.
All right, well, as you can see, we're running out of time, and that means we're going to have to send it on off to Pocono. We've got that full weekend of NASCAR events on ESPN and ESPN2. We'll be back tomorrow at 12:30 here on ESPN2 with NASCAR Nationwide Series qualifying. As we get ready to say farewell, Barrichello's hoping to get right back out onto that track, and don't know if it's going to make it. But guys, what do you expect in qualifying tomorrow? So far, all of the ringers have done very well.
Oh, I think Marcus Ambrose is going to be fast. Max Papis, Scott Pruett, the top 4 or 5 that we've seen, these road course ringers, they're fastest in practice, and I expect the same thing tomorrow.
You got the 2 local boys. You got Quebec's Villeneuve and Carpentier, and don't forget Fellows. He's the other guy from Canada.
Yeah, this is going to be fun, as there you can see the Mad Max climbing in. For Rusty Wallace, Randy LaJoie, Jack Arute, and Vince Welch, I'm Marty Reed. We're going to turn it over now to Dr. Jerry Punches in the beautiful Pocono Mountains for NASCAR Sprint Cup Series at Pocono qualifying. Till we meet again.